Hello, special agents, and welcome to week 3 of training in the art of sexpionage. By now, we should be starting to catch our groove and understand how the program and the process works. And I hope that you're starting to make some progress and get some real results. Let's get started with week 3's emotional intimacy training. Today's training is called Looking for the Good. Our goals for this week are: number 1, allowing the principle of aggregated marginal gains or 1% improvements to work in our marriage and our life. Number 2, to understand how looking for things to be grateful for primes our brains to find joy and goodness throughout each and every day. And number 3, how to intentionally give our brains good problems to solve and how that changes the feedback we get from the universe to serve us rather than to keep us stuck. Week 3 is all about looking for the good. So I want to give you a book recommendation. I don't often do this, but Atomic Habits by James Clear is one of my favorite books. And in it, he talks about aggregated marginal gains. The story he tells about how to understand aggregated marginal gains is about a British bicycling team. So this team was just average, but they didn't win very often at all. In fact, bike shops would not allow their team members to purchase bikes from them because they didn't want their brand associated with a team that lost so often. So eventually, this British cycling team hired a brand new coach, and he came in, but instead of wiping everything out and starting from scratch, this coach decided to improve the team's performance by making 1% marginal gains, meaning he made 1% changes in their uniform, in the way they tuned their bikes, the way they prepared for contests and things like that. And over time, this same cycling team, by making 1% marginal gains, started winning the Tour de France, the Olympics, and tons of national and international biking races. This coach, by making 1% marginal gains, created a team that was unbeatable. So how do we do this in our marriages? Let's go back to our 3 laws of the sex first approach. If you remember, week 1, we talked about the first law, which the only thing we have 100% control over in any given situation is myself. Remember, we talked about filling our cups. Number 2, I am 100% in control of the experience I'm having in any given situation. We talked about that in week 2, about rewriting our stories. And number 3, my partner's job is not to make me happy, but to be 100% themselves. That's what we're talking about today. If our partner's only job is to be themselves, then it becomes our responsibility to look for the good in them. So I don't want you to be tripped up by the simplicity of the principle I'm going to teach you today. Once we learn how to take responsibility for our own happiness by filling our own cups, learning about the way we tell our story and how it's optional and it matters because it dictates the experience we're having in any given circumstance, and that our job is to love our partner exactly the way they are, then it becomes our responsibility to look for the good. Now, I can imagine that on that day that you said, I do or I will, you looked at your partner and you saw that the good in them and the good in your union completely overpowered any negativity or negative personality traits or things like that about them. So much so that you went for it. You tied the knot. You said, I do or I will be with this person for the rest of my life because I see so much good in this opportunity. But then life hit, right? We became parents and careers and all types of distractions and devices and media started to get in the way. And all of a sudden, our brains start to notice lots of negative things about our partner, maybe about our marriage, about the way they handle certain things, our eyes were kind of open to maybe some things that weren't so positive. Now, I want to do this little exercise with all of you. I imagine that each and every one of you is watching me on a screen. So I want everyone to look up from what they're watching and look around the room you're sitting in for 3 seconds for everything that is red. Ready, go. All right, now do me a favor and close your eyes. I hope that you took inventory of the things in the room that were red, but now I want you to tell me everything that you saw in the room that was brown. Hopefully that was a little bit challenging because I asked you to look for red. So your brain naturally focused on the things in the room that were red, possibly overlooking anything that was green or brown or yellow or any other color, right? So this is something that our brains naturally do. They find whatever it is that we look for. And I love this illustration of this simple things that happens to all of us is we're so busy looking for whatever it is that we're looking for that many times we're overlooking all of the good. And so this simple 1% principle that we're going to do today is the way that we can prime our brain to look for the good in not only our partner, but also in our marriage. So what I want you to do this week is I want you to start every single day looking for reasons that you are grateful for your spouse. Now, I want you to wake up in the morning and first thing I want you to fill your mind with these 3 reasons why you're grateful for your partner and your life. I want you to write them down and look at this list. You can refer to it over and over throughout the day. The fun sheet I'm going to give you this week will help you with this. Now, number 2, what I want you to do to make 1% marginal aggregated gains is to look for good problems to solve in your marriage. Now, one of our brain's main functions is to solve problems. Left unchecked, our brain will just find all kinds of problems like, why did my spouse leave his clothes on the floor? Or why are the dishes not getting done? There's all kinds of problems that our brain left unchecked will find for us throughout the day. But you can intentionally give your brain good problems to solve every day. So along with looking for reasons why you're grateful for your spouse, I want you to also focus on one good problem to solve per day. These can be things like, how can I feel more connected to my spouse today? How can I show my spouse that I love them using their primary love language? How can I serve them in a way that feels good to them? So these are problems that you can be solving, you can put out into the universe and see what comes back. So remember last week we talked about these circles of control versus our circles of concern. So these are these concentric circles that in the middle is our circle of control. This includes ourselves, our choices, our attitudes, our decisions, our actions. They're the things that only we can control. Outside of our circle of control lies our circle of influence. And then outside of that lies our circle of concern, which is all the things that we cannot directly control, like the economy, the weather, our spouse, or our children, right? We can't directly control any of those things. However, as we focus in our circle, we start to have more influence. So the more we focus in our circle of concern, our influence and our control starts to shrink. It's a huge, colossal waste of our time to worry about things that we cannot control. But once we start to focus in our circle of control, our circle of influence grows, and that circle of concern starts to get less and less significant in our lives. So the way we're going to focus in our circle of control this week is to look for the good in our spouse, look for things to be grateful for each and every day. And number two is to give our brain good problems to solve. Now, we're going to tie this all together with a concept I like to teach called daily connection. Daily connections is a really important way for you to connect with your spouse each day. Now, there are 1,440 minutes in every day. I hope I did my math right, but I think that's correct. And I'm asking you to spend 20 of those minutes connecting with your spouse every day. It should be non-negotiable. So the way that daily connections works is to schedule this non-negotiable time every day. This can be first thing in the morning. It can be after you put the kids to bed. It can be a walk after dinner, however it works for you, but it should be absolutely non-negotiable. These 20 minutes each day that you spend connecting with your spouse. Now, during this 20 minutes, you're going to take turns asking questions and learning about each other's inner worlds. So this is not things like, what did you do today? How was your day? Not in terms of what are the things that you did, but how did you feel today? What emotions kept coming up for you today? What was difficult for you today? What made you excited today? Is there anything that I can do to make tomorrow better for you? These types of questions get you acquainted with your partner's inner world. So even if you're at home together all day, you're still experiencing things differently. And so it's nice to be able to come together at some point during the day and discuss your experiences of the day and let your partner see a little bit inside of your inner world and your inner workings. Now, the last little thing I will say about daily connections is that each one of these little 20-minute sessions should end with some form of physical affection. That can be a kiss, it can be a long hug, it can be a back rub, it can be anything that makes you guys feel good and like you have connected. So those are going to be the three most important things that you can do this week, small marginal changes that will aggregate over time and give you huge results. So I want you to make sure that you print out the fun sheet that is below this video, and that will help you not only this week, but you can print it out over and over and over again and use it forever if you would like. So that is week 3, emotional intimacy training, looking for the good. I will see you in a couple of days with your physical intimacy training. And until then, have a wonderful week.